What's up, everybody? Brokerage Podcast. Back to you with another interview. Today, we got the most illustrious guest we ever had on this podcast, Emmanuel Kabongo.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. My name is Emmanuel Kabongo, born in Congo, raised in South Africa. I grew up in Toronto, living back and forth between Toronto and Los Angeles. I am an actor, Canadian, African, whatever you want to call it, and Afro-Canadian. And yeah, yeah, man, I'm from Blake Street, downtown Toronto. And I got into acting a few years ago, actually. Almost 10 years ago. I used to play basketball. I thought that sports, whether basketball or soccer, was going to be my journey. But life redirected me into a passion that I was always fond of. And now I'm here today, safe and sound. Lots of productions have stopped, but I'm just happy to be alive and safe and in Canada. So yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So we interviewed your brother Mike a few days back, and he told us, like, coming from Congo really gave him an informative experience, and it sticks him to this day. Talk about coming from that country and how that influences your art and how that still is very informative to you to this day.
Okay. Well, I left Congo when I was 6 years old, and Mike was one. And so I have partial memories of how it was. We were okay, but it was during a civil war when we left, so it was pretty dangerous. The country was in turmoil, and it's still affected till this day because of the civil war that's been going on for years. But for me, what I do remember is when we lived. More of the details that I remember is more when we lived in South Africa
Yeah,
and what that was like living in a foreign country, didn't know the language, at some points living homeless and living with other families, living in churches, living in a bachelor with our mom and 5 kids. And actually, a few years ago, Mike and I went back to Congo. I went back to Congo for the first time. It was the second time because he was playing for the national basketball team in Congo.
yeah,
So going back for me as an adult in my 20s, well, when I did go, I was in my 30s when I went. And going back, it really allowed me to have more humility, to be more grateful that I had the opportunity to live in a country like Canada. It it made me realize. I mean, I was always grateful, but the experience going back to Congo and seeing what the way people lived there, the way our own family lived there, really um, solidified how lucky I am, how lucky we are to be in a country like Toronto because down there, it's not just viruses and outbreaks, it's also infrastructure. It's also, there's no middle class. There's a huge divide. There's a lot of greed. There's a lot of corruption, and so I couldn't imagine what our lives, me and my siblings and my family, what our lives would have been like if we didn't have the opportunity to move out here in North America. So I'm very fortunate and I'm very lucky to be here.
of course, of course. So we both had something in common. We lived in the same neighborhood for a chunk of our lives, I would say.
Yeah.
And shout out to Blake Street. So me and Mike were talking about how that informed us as children and how we let that time in Blake Street influence us in ways that drove our passion. Talk about your time in Blake Street a little bit.
Well, when I moved to Blake, I was 11 years old, and so it was a very diverse neighborhood. You had people from different parts of the world, different languages, whether it's Asia, South America, Africa, uh, different parts of Canada, uh, the islands, you know. And so growing up, I had always had different types of friends from Blake, and also going to the schools in the neighborhood. You know, you had different kids from different parts of Toronto attending Earl Grey, for example.
Yeah.
So for me, growing up in Blake Street, it really it motivated me to number one focus on sports. You know, majority of everybody in the neighborhood played basketball, and I remember when I was growing up, I used to play citywide basketball with Kempton. Howard, rest in peace to Kempton. You know, he was the one that kind of put basketball on the map in terms of being a coach and, you know, like creating a nice boys and girls club team and giving us the opportunity to go to other boys and girls clubs or community centers and play against them. So for me, Blake Street was, you know, was compared to because when we moved down to Toronto, we first lived in Cabbage Town in Bleecker for a few months, and then my parents were able to get a place in Blake, and so for me that's my roots. You know, that's where I learned how to how to date. You know, that's where
Yeah.
I learned about the streets. You know, the street smarts and you had, you know, you didn't always have, you know, people that got scholarships or were focused in schools, you know, but you had other people that came out of Blake that, you know, were troublemakers or got in trouble with the law. So, you know, just like many neighborhoods in Toronto, you know, you kind of have a choice, you know, to either go left or go right. Luckily, you know, I had parents, mom was very strict. You know, we had curfews. We had to be home at a certain time. You know, we had to do our homework. We had to make sure we didn't skip school. So, but Blake Street, you know, with some of the support from the community center, some of the support from some of the OGs from Blake Street, you know, like kind of like supporting some of the kids with their basketball, supporting my brother, supporting my sister, supporting me when I got into acting, you know, coming to my plays or coming to my movies and stuff. Um, yeah, it's always been a place that I could, you know, go back and remember where I'm from, and till this day it continues to motivate me.
Yeah. So as a kid, I used to see you always on the soccer field, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just want to know, and you were in the movie, I mean, a show called 21 Thunder.
yeah.
Talk about that experience on 21 Thunder and how your soccer skills translated to that.
Yeah, so when we moved in Blake, I wanted to be a soccer player, and I remember when I first went to Eastview, the community center there, and I was playing soccer with like the kids. Me and my siblings used to play soccer barefoot, and I remember some of the kids making fun of me. Oh, look at this freshie, you know, like look at this. What is this man doing? What is this freshie doing? Like trying to play with his bare feet. Like I'm like, yo, you guys don't even know, bro. You know, you have better control of the ball, like, you know, more grip.
Oh, fraction.
Uh, but you know, not everybody played soccer in Blake. Everybody, majority played, you know, either hockey or basketball, baseball. My siblings played baseball, you know, in the T-ball league down by Girard. So for me, I just had to adapt. You know, that's why I joined the basketball team in the neighborhood. But for soccer and the show, funny enough, after I had auditioned for the show, my youngest brother Mike was home for the summer from school, and I had an inkling to go down to Blake Street Public School and
Yeah.
record myself playing soccer,
Oh,
so that I could, you know, send a little clip of my soccer skills. So my brother Jonathan came with me. I gave him my phone. I put on my soccer shorts and my soccer ball, and kicked the ball around a couple times for like 15 minutes, and then I went back home and I created a 1 minute demo reel,
wow.
you know, showing my soccer skills and kind of manipulated the edit,
Power
some
of
slow
editing.
mo,
Yeah.
and threw in some music, and then I sent it out. And a week later, I got a second meeting, a callback, and at the callback, after I was completed auditioning, the director was very thankful that I had sent them a video of my soccer skills.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't done that, they wouldn't have asked everybody else to send them a tape showcasing their soccer skills. So thank you to Blake Street Public Schools soccer field.
Shout
It
out.
actually helped me get that role.
It's not the best soccer field, but it does its job.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
magic to it.
yeah, yeah,
But for those who haven't watched 21 Thunder, it's so intense. More than a soccer show. It's
yeah,
so intense.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. It's unfortunate we didn't get a second season, but it did what it did. It spread. It got really popular in Brazil. There's a huge soccer population over there, and some parts of Europe as well. And it had a little following, but unfortunately, it didn't get picked up for a second season for a number of reasons. But I was really grateful to have been given that opportunity to do two of my passions in one setting,
One thing.
soccer and acting.
That's all you can ask for. So I also saw you did a recent movie called Quebec Sit, if that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Quebec City.
Comedy.
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
It's a comedy. It's a filmmaker who I worked with before. We did a web series together, and he wrote this bilingual film.
Yeah.
It's about the politics of Ontario and Quebec, and it's about Quebec trying to exit, like Brexit,
Yeah.
Quebecit,
Yeah.
because Quebec has been, I don't know if you know Canadian history, but for the longest time, Quebec has tried to separate themselves from the rest of Canada. So there's a little bit of a comedy in this feature film. It's now in post, and there hasn't been a date set yet for when it's going to be released. But I'm sure it's going to do what majority of a lot of films do, which is go through the festival circuit, and
Yeah.
hopefully, potentially, it will have, if not a global release, it will have a national release here in Canada.
For sure, for sure. So, talking about being an actor during these times, how are you staying sharp with your skills? Are you taking this time to rest, or are you continue sharpening your skills, even like a pro athlete, just working
There's
at?
no time to rest. There's time to rest, but just because you're busy all the time doesn't mean you're productive. You can be productive in the way you manage your time.
Yeah,
So time management is extremely important for me. So in terms of staying sharp, I continue reading.
yeah,
I continue going back and reading some old notes from acting classes that I've taken. Going back and reading stuff I've written down. I continue watching films and shows and documentaries. I watched a documentary last night before I went to bed, and also staying sharp with some of the auditions I get.
yeah,
These auditions are starting to pick up again, but not auditions in the room. Like a lot of these auditions are on tape. So I use these auditions to stay sharp. And hopefully I'll get back into classes again, acting classes. But right now, that's what I'm doing. Continuing to read, and watch whatever I can, whether it's a show, movie, or documentary.
I hear-
Allowing myself to have fun, and have fun by spending some time walking outside, going to the beach. Keep my distance.
keep
Keep my distance. Wear my mask where I got to wear my mask. But we're lucky to not have as many cases as
yeah,
different parts of
fortunate.
the world. So that's what I'm doing to stay sharp.
Sure, sure. So, I noticed when I was doing my little dive into your filmography and stuff, you executive produced a series called Teenagers, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
what do you enjoy more doing? Being behind the camera or in front of the camera?
in front of the camera.
Do you have
Right,
aspirations to go behind the camera?
right now at least. I mean, I started my own production company now,
Yeah.
so that I could, you know, dive more into producing. But Teenagers was a really fun project. It came to me through a mutual friend who was also casted in the show as well. He and the filmmaker and the writer of Teenagers, the writer director of Teenagers, had collaborated on a short film, and they both had an interview with a daytime talk show, and my friend had asked me to tag along to support him, and so when I went to tag along, I met the writer and director of Teenagers at the time. It wasn't made yet, but him and I became friends and exchanged Facebooks. And a couple of weeks later, he messaged me on Facebook telling me he was developing this web series and wanted to see how I felt about it because he had in mind a role for me. So when he sent it to me, I really, really liked the way he wrote and thought he was very, very talented. And so I asked if he could potentially expand the episodes because at the time it was 4 episodes, and 4 episodes turned into 8 episodes, and that's when I decided to come on as a producer and get the thing off the ground and casted a bunch of my friends. Through
Oh,
other friends that I cast, they brought along other actors, and he brought on board some actors that he had worked with before, and he was still in film school at that point and was able to utilize a lot of his colleagues from school to be part of the crew. And one of his colleagues, who was also our DOP, had access to equipment because he worked at a camera store, and we were able to get some discounts with equipment, and everybody just basically came on board because they had the passion to create and be part of film and TV. And so nobody got paid. We all just volunteered our time and talent. And then next thing you know, we had a great marketing plan and spread the word. Got some music from local artists like Shy Wisdom, my brother, Devante, um, and a couple other people. And next thing you know, it just blew up, and we had some fans all over the continent, and then it spread into south of the border, into Mexico, South America, and then it spread into Europe and
mm,
Africa and Asia. Next thing you know, we had fans wanting a second season, so we made a second season. I brought on board some more friends, some YouTubers, other friends from other popular shows, and then the thing just kind of had its own thing. And then I got nominated for a Canadian Screen Award for my part as an actor in it, and it was just, it was just, yeah. And then we did a third season, and it was just time to wrap it up. You know, it was just,
you gotta go.
I couldn't play a teenager anymore. You know what I mean? It was time to
Yeah,
wrap it up. It was time to wrap it up.
you start looking like an undercover cop at that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? What is this guy doing? Waste man over here.
Nah, honestly, that's when filmmaking is at its most fun, when you do it with friends. It's collaboration. That's the magic of filmmaking. Every friends collaborating, and at a point that gets lost when there's money involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the beauty of it. So I saw you had a couple of writing credits. Do you plan on writing more?
Yeah,
Because
I do.
that's my field. I love writing. I love
Yeah,
all that stuff. It's so
yeah,
therapeutic writing.
yeah. For the longest time, I would tell myself I'm not a writer because I didn't study writing,
Yeah.
and English is not my first language. French is. And so sometimes I feel like I have a hard time formulating proper words to put on the page. And so there's always been this fear and judgment towards my own self, not from people. But through circumstances and being placed in certain situations, I guess you could call it the right place at the right time, I've been forced to pursue writing. Like life has forced me to dive more into learning about writing and creating my own work. And so, yes, I am very much interested in developing my own projects. I'm actually working on a couple things right now as we speak.
Nice.
Um, a television series and two films that I am writing on my own as well. It's challenging, but I'm gonna do it. A couple years ago, I actually co-wrote three short films. One of them I storied, meaning I gave the idea to a writer and she was able to take her own ideas and develop a really, really wonderful script, short film. The film is called A Man's Story. We applied for a grant. We got 40K to do the film. And so now I am working on my first feature film.
Congrats.
And yeah, it's a progress,
Yeah.
it's a progress. It's a process actually. And so that's what I'm working on, But for the longest time, it was in my head that, oh, you're not a writer, you're not a writer, you're not a writer. But through experiences and meeting certain people, I've been kind of ushered into like, it's time to create your own work, buddy.
Yeah, man. Make your own path
But
every day.
my passion, I love acting. I love just, you know, trying and understanding different parts of humanity, different parts of the psychology of the mind, the depth of spiritual aspects of different walks of life, So at the moment, acting is still like my number one.
Of course, of course. So I'm guessing this is gonna be my last question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned being an actor and the humanity of it. So we're seeing in Hollywood nowadays, especially right now during these times, about all the representation. How do you feel that affects you right now?
Can you elaborate more on your question?
So in terms of representation in Hollywood, how we're seeing a uproar of so and so actor dropping out of this role because it's not fairly represented,
Yeah.
or um, just
Okay, I get your question.
clamoring of
Yeah.
representation. How
Yeah,
do
for
you feel about
me, it's really important the things I get involved with now. I want to be a role model. I want to be a beacon of light. I want to be a leader. Hopefully, I would like to inspire others to want better for themselves, to want better for them, for their lives. And I would like to do that with the projects I'm involved in, whether it's as an actor or as a creator behind the camera. And so I'm at a position right now in my career where I'm able to turn some auditions down. I'm able to turn some parts down if it doesn't resonate with the type of message I want to put out.
it?
So for me, it's really important to be, especially as a Black man, especially with the changing of time right now. It's a very pivotal moment in life, in our world, in our industry, to make wise choices. And not just focus on making money, but focus more on being a genuine, gritty, real artist.
Yeah,
So I am very, not, I wouldn't use the word picky, but I am calculated
yeah,
calculated with the types of roles I would like to represent, because when people see these characters, I don't just want them to be entertained. I would like for them to be educated.
yeah. There's a big responsibility behind every action, man. And
Exactly.
with that, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for coming on. That should mean the world to me, man.
Yes.
Always looked up to you as
Anytime.
a kid, man. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
so much, man.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Really
Anything you
appreciate
want
it.
to shout out?
I want to shout out everybody from Blake Street. I want to shout out everybody from Toronto. Everybody grinding. My brother Mike, my siblings Billy, Vanessa, Jonathan, Henry, and everybody from Blake Street. Really, but most importantly, just love to everybody in the city of Toronto, love to everybody in Canada, love to everybody in the world. Let's continue to lead with love and to be more responsive, less reactive, and continue growing so we can reach our highest conscious self.
Of course, man. And we're gonna leave it on that, man. Thank you so much, yo.
Thank you for having me.